Yo, what is going on YouTube? It is Karma Speaks back with another video. This one is a little bit different. I'm on a little bit of a road trip with my lady.
Hi.
We are going upstate New York. I'm going upstate for a little project that I'm working on for a client. It's going to be super, cool. It's a chill little thing. But anyways, I had the idea of talking about retiring early. Now, there are different movements and trends and stuff. There's FIRE, which is financially independent, retire early. You got barista FIRE. You got all this other type that person cannot drive. All of these other different types of FIRE movements and stuff. But basically the premise is, retiring early or always just having a good amount in retirement, right? Now, growing up, I was always that guy who was just like, man, F retirement. Like, retirement is a backup plan. I got to get rich now. And honestly, that is a really good mindset to have because it'll, help you to work harder and progress at a faster rate rather than just relying on, a crappy retirement at 60 or 65. And now they're talking about it being 70 years old for retirement. That's not a way to live, to work 60 years or 40 years just to enjoy the back 20 when you're all old and wrinkly and weak, That's just my personal opinion. But anyways, moving on to retiring early, I wanted to talk about different strategies and different outlooks that you can just sort of have surrounding retirement. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is just the steps that you can make right now or the steps that you can take right now, right? So for myself, this is probably the first year where I'm making actual adult type money, right? This year, we'll just say I'm projected to make about just shy of six figures. Let's say $90,000, right? With that being said, I have a hefty tax bill that's coming up. So I've been brainstorming ideas on how I can lower my tax liability. And one of those options are a IRA, which is pre-tax dollars that you can put away, and then you'll pay those taxes on the back end when you retire, right? Or you could do something like a solo 401k, which is basically the same thing. Just, it's from the business aspect where I can match on both sides, the employee and employer side. And you can contribute more. You can contribute, I think, $24,000 or so. So that's the first thing, is realizing I have to make decisions now because my tax bill is looking like it's going to be around $20,000. And I'm not looking forward to that. So I got to make some plays now to lower that while putting up money for my retirement. Now, next thing is, how does someone want to retire? Because you got many different options. You got stock market. You got, we could even say bonds. You could say businesses, right? So having equity in businesses and then having real estate, right? Now with real estate, one of the ways that you could do it are rental properties that you own personally. You could be in syndicates, which are basically a pool of investors putting their money together and investing on one property, right? It could be commercial or residential. Or maybe you just own a development company, again, which is just equity in a business, right? There are many ways that you could look upon it or just use as a strategy when you're thinking about retirement. Now, with that, which one provides the most cash flow? That's a good question, right? That's a question I had. Where am I going to get the best cash flow from? Now, with investing in stocks, you got some ways that you can get cash flow. Either you can pull out your gains, right? But you're going to have to pay capital gains tax on that. You could withdraw your gains, mess up compounding, and go from there. Or you could do dividend investments. So invest in dividend paying stocks. Let's just say a company like Johnson & Johnson, right? They pay a dividend of 12% every year. Let's just say those are the numbers. I don't know what the numbers are exactly. But let's just say Johnson & Johnson is about 12% every year. You got $1 million portfolio. That's $120,000 that you're getting paid in dividends every year. Again, you're going to have to pay capital gains. I think it might be long-term capital gains tax, but that's another play for you. Last one in terms of real estate that we're going to talk about is going to be rental income. Now, the thing about real estate and rental income, depending on how you leverage your dollars, or how you go into real estate will depend on how much cash flow and how much property you'll need to actually cash flow properly, right? So assuming you're going how most people have to do it, which is taking on debt to acquire these properties, it's going to take you a lot of properties to really cash flow a significant amount of money, right? It's going to take you probably 10 plus properties before you start cash flowing a decent amount a month. Like, let's just say 6 grand to 10 grand a month. It's going to take you about 20 properties to get to that point. Maybe you might need more, right? I've seen people where it's like they have 50 properties just to cash flow 10 grand, because some people are only getting 100, 200, 300 bucks in profit because interest rates are so high, property taxes are so high, and your insurance is high also. So it's like everything's going up. So your profit margins are getting slimmer and slimmer by the year, right? And especially if you're buying real estate now. Now, if interest rates drop and people's mortgage payments are so much lower and rents stay where they're at, then yeah, your profit margins might, there might be a bigger difference than what it is today, but there's no saying if, interest rates will drop like that. And the thing about real estate is anything can happen, especially when you're leveraging other people's money. Now, the thing about, that was a police officer. The thing about leveraging other people's money is that anything could happen. Let's go back to 2020, COVID, COVID, right? I don't know if YouTube still flags that. The thing about COVID is that the government allowed people a lot of forgiveness to not pay their rent, but they didn't exactly give forgiveness for landlords to own their property, right? They gave it for homeowners for their personal residence. Like, they allowed you to, defer your payments and put it on the back half of the loan, but they didn't allow you to do that for your investment properties. So a lot of investors were caught up, over leveraged, meaning they borrowed too much money from the bank on all these properties, and it caused it basically to them to default on their loans and all that stuff because they couldn't pay their mortgage payments, and renters weren't paying their rent because the government said, oh, it's okay. And they had to let these people like stay in their homes and not pay rent. So that's where it gets tricky. Now you have a dilemma of, hey, do I just be my own bank and fund all my deals? Or do I leverage using, regular banks, right? And that's where it also gets tricky, because it's like to save up for let's just say a $300,000 house takes a lot of time. It takes like decades, probably. Like, most people don't even save 10 grand a year. So to save up $300,000, let's just say you saved up 10 a year, it's going to take you 30 years to save up all that money, right? So it all gets a little bit tricky when it comes to how you're leveraging your money and the bank's money to acquire these assets. Now, with something like investing in retirement accounts and stock market and getting these dividend paying, ETFs or whatever, portfolio stocks, whatever, it's all your money, right? Sure, you could trade. Like, if you're trading, you could trade on margin, but for the most part, we're going to be investing just our own monies, and our own money is going to be compounding and growing. Now, going back to retirement, it just comes down to, where do you find the most stability, right? Because each have their pros and cons when it comes to stability and what is the most stable over time. The thing about it is, both appreciate like crazy, right? And both go down in certain aspects or certain time periods, right? But the thing is that both are always up, if that makes sense. Stock market could be down for 3 years, but guess what? It's always going to go back up, and it's always going to do better than it was 10 years prior or 20 years prior, right? It just depends on your time horizon. How far ahead are you willing to look? Same thing with real estate. Real estate market might crash like 2008, but I think within 7 years, it was back to where it was at. And then after that, it appreciated like crazy. Like, within the last 5 years from COVID till now, real estate has pretty much had a 100% increase, maybe a little bit less, like closer to like an 80% increase, which means let's just say you had a $400,000 house in 2020. Now it's probably worth $700,000. And that's a crazy increase, right? But it's like these markets, they always just go up. They don't go down. S&P 500 probably did, I think, like 17% within the last 12 months, which is crazy. So your money, it compounds and it makes money, and it's always going to. It just depends on your time horizon. Are you looking for the next 2 years? Or are you looking for the next 20? You know? So retirement, think about it, consider it, because you got to start making plays now, or else you're going to be stuck and you're going to be, like a deer in headlights, especially when it starts to get closer to that time where, you might not have Social Security. You might not have had a job that, gives you a pension and all that stuff. And you might only have to rely on your own dollars and cents. And that's kind of where I'm at now, where it's like I'm self-employed and I'm going to have to rely on my dollars and cents in the future. So I got to put up my money now so that I make sure I'm set for the rest of my life. And hopefully I'll be able to retire early by 30 or like 35 or so. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I appreciate anybody that watched this. Have anything to say?
Subscribe to his channel.
Subscribe, like and subscribe. I put in a lot of effort into these videos. I try to think them out before I ramble, but that's about it. Appreciate anybody that watched this. Peace.